The morning of November 9th, 1989, began like any other for Hans Weber, a border guard at the Berlin Wall's Bornholmer Street crossing. He stood at his post, checking papers with the same mechanical precision he'd maintained for the past 7 years. The grey November sky hung low over Berlin, matching the concrete barrier that had divided the city for nearly 3 decades. But something felt different today. There was an electricity in the air, a tension that made his fingers twitch as he stamped documents. Whispers had been circulating among the East German citizens. Changes were coming, they said. The communist regime was weakening. At his small apartment, just blocks from the wall, Thomas Muller sat with his sister Anna, watching their old television set with increasing disbelief. Günter Schabowski, an East German government official, was giving what seemed like a routine press conference.
Private travel outside the country can now be applied for without prerequisites.
Then came the words that would change everything.
According to my information, immediately. Did he just say what I think he said?
He did. He just announced freedom.
By early evening, a crowd had begun gathering at the Bornholmer Street checkpoint. Hans watched as dozens became hundreds, then thousands. They were chanting, "Open the gate!" The sound thundered through his chest, making his hands shake as he gripped his rifle.
We've received no official orders. What do we do?
Hans watched the crowd grow larger, more insistent. These weren't protesters or revolutionaries. These were ordinary people, mothers with children, elderly couples, young students. They were his people. Across the city, Thomas and Anna joined the surge of East Berliners moving toward the wall. The streets were alive with energy, strangers hugging and crying together. Someone had brought beer, passing bottles through the crowd. Others carried hammers and chisels, ready to chip away at the concrete barrier that had imprisoned them for so long. At 10:45 p.m., Hans heard Major Schmidt's radio crackle to life. The orders were unclear, contradictory. The crowd was pressing closer, their chants growing louder. Hans looked into their faces, hopeful, fearful, determined.
Sir, we can't hold them back, and maybe we shouldn't.
Schmidt stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded.
Open the gate.
The cheers were deafening as the barrier lifted. Thomas and Anna found themselves carried forward by the surge of people. Tears streamed down Anna's face as they crossed the boundary that had seemed so permanent just hours before. West Berliners were waiting on the other side, greeting them with flowers, champagne, and embraces. Hans watched as the crowd streamed past him, his rifle hanging forgotten at his side.
Thank you for letting us be free.
Throughout the night, the scene repeated at checkpoints across Berlin. People danced atop the wall, singing and celebrating. Some began attacking the wall with hammers and chisels, these Mauerspecht, taking their first pieces of the barrier as souvenirs of freedom. Years later, Thomas would tell his children about that night, about how it felt to witness the end of division, the triumph of humanity over concrete and barbed wire. He would describe the taste of West German beer, the sound of thousands singing together, the sight of families reuniting after decades apart. And Hans would remember too, not as a guard who failed to maintain order, but as someone who chose to be on the right side of history. The piece of chocolate from the elderly woman remained wrapped in his desk drawer, a reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of courage come not from following orders, but from following your heart. The Berlin Wall fell not with a bang or an official decree, but with the quiet courage of ordinary people who dared to dream of freedom. In a single night, decades of separation crumbled under the weight of human hope and determination, proving that no wall is stronger than the will of people yearning to be free.